our indigenous knowledge on how we used to protect the river and its biodiversity, then we will be building a better future.
The reason why we are born and found everything intact like that is because they were there. Here, something special was done by our indigenous parents in the past. So we really thank them for keeping this Garden of Eden for us.
I think it's a responsibility for everyone in business to understand how nature is very delicate nature, and how we need to acknowledge the footprint that we have in that environment when we're there, in following the laws of the land, in following the direction of wildlife, so that we're all able to preserve it. So not to degrade the lands, not to impose ourselves on it, but rather find ourselves moving through those areas so that we can preserve it for future generations, to enjoy the environment in its natural habitat, and preserving the smallest of insects to the largest of antelope and mammals.
One of the best signs of a healthy ecosystem is a bird called a batalio, which is also happens to be a flagship of the Chobe area. So if anything is wrong with the ecosystem in Chobe, we'll just notice that the batalio will disappear. Because we still see batalios, it's a very good sign that the ecosystem is very healthy.
Thank you so much for that insightful video. At least we all know where we go for the next tourist encounters. Excellency, right now, may we have traditional cultural dance. This is also courtesy of the host country, Republic of Botswana. We are going to have that for 5 minutes. Thank you. wonderful performance. Thank you, thank you. Excellencies, now we are having opening remarks. The first opening address is going to be presented to us by Her Excellency, Ms. Selma Malka Haddad, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission. You have the floor, Excellency. Thank you.
Excellency, Advocate Duma Boko, President of the Republic of Botswana and our host. Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Botswana. Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Botswana. And also Excellency, the Minister of Environment and the Tourism of the Republic of Botswana and the members of the Cabinet. Excellency Ana Paula Chanteluna de Cavallo Pereira, Minister of Environment of the Republic of Angola, representing His Excellency João Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola and Chairperson of the African Union. Excellency Moses Belakati, Commissioner for Agricultural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment of the African Union Commission. Excellencies, representatives of head of states, honorable ministers, members of the Parliament of the Republic of Botswana, executives of the regional economic communities, members of the diplomatic corps, esteemed partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, all protocol duly observed. It is with profound gratitude and great honor that I address this distinguished gathering on behalf of the African Union Commission at the very first Biodiversity Summit, Africa Biodiversity Summit, taking place in this beautiful city of Gaborone, in this wonderful country that is Botswana, and the video that we have just watched, I think, says it all. Allow me first and foremost to extend our heartfelt appreciation to President Advocate Duma Boko, the government and the people of the Republic of Botswana for the generous hospitality and exemplary leadership in hosting this landmark summit. Your commitment, Excellency Mr. President, to environmental stewardship and sustainable development is a beacon for our continent. Excellencies, please allow me also to express our appreciation to our member states and partners who supported this summit, both technically and financially. This historic gathering marks a pivotal moment in our continental journey towards safeguarding Africa's rich, unique, and irreplaceable biodiversity. Under the theme, Leveraging Biodiversity for Africa's Prosperity, we convene not only to celebrate our natural and cultural heritage, but to chart a bold and unified course for the protection, the preservation, and sustainable use of biodiversity in our beautiful continent, Africa. As underscored and recalled during the last few days of discussions here in Gaborone, Africa is home to some of the most diverse ecosystems on Earth. From the Congo Basin to the Sahara and the Mediterranean Sea, Indian or Atlantic Ocean shores, and from the Great Lakes to the Cape Floristic region, these landscapes are more than scenic wonders. They are the lifeblood of our economies, the foundation of our cultures, and the guardians of our future. Yet, they are under siege from climate change, pollution, land degradation, and unsustainable exploitation. These multiple planetary crises demand a triple commitment: to act, to invest, and to transform. This summit is a response to that imperative. It is a call to elevate biodiversity governance to the highest political level. The African Union Commission stands ready to work with member states, regional bodies, civil society, and the private sector to implement the African biodiversity strategy and align our efforts with Agenda 2063 and Sustainable Development Goals 2030. As a continent, we must ensure that biodiversity is not treated as a peripheral issue, but as a central pillar of development, peace, and resilience. In this regard, I would like to sincerely appreciate the work done during the last 2 days by our technicians, our experts, and our ministers. Their deliberations have indeed helped articulate clear positions for our leaders to adopt and promote as our common African stance and positions on this strategic matter. I respectfully urge our heads of states and governments to champion biodiversity as a strategic asset. Let us integrate it into national planning, budgetary frameworks, and climate adaptation strategies. Let us empower our youth and indigenous communities whose knowledge and stewardship are vital. And let us speak with one voice on the global stage, demanding equity, financing, and technology transfer to support our ambitions, our legitimate ambitions. Africa's prosperity must be green, inclusive, and rooted in nature. The decision we make here in Gaborone will transcend across generations and leave a legacy of environmental stewardship. The declaration to be adopted today constitutes indeed a milestone in this regard. Let us rise onto the occasion, unite and be united in purpose and unwavering in resolve. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you for the remarks. Next, we are going to have opening remarks by Her Excellency Mrs. Perea, Chairperson of the African Union. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I speak in Portuguese. Excelência, Advogado Duma Boko, Presidente da República do Botsuana, Excelências representantes dos chefes de Estado e do Governo da União Africana,
and Government of the African Union, Excellency Ambassador Salma Haddad, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Honorable Commissioner of the African Union, representatives of international and regional organizations, bilateral, multilateral partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me, Your Excellency, Advocate Duma Boko, the President of the Republic of Botswana, to convey the warm greetings to the government and people of Botswana, of your dear brother, His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, the President of the Republic of Angola, the Chair of the African Union, who, due to other commitments, was not able to be with here today. Your Excellencies, it's with honor and a profound sense of duty that I take the floor at this first African Summit on Biodiversity in representation of His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, who we are here to celebrate our continent today and reaffirm our commitment with the wealth of the live nature that sustains us. Africa is a continent of biological diversity with savannas from Serengeti, the coral reefs in the Indian Ocean, mangroves of the Atlantic, Great Lakes, and the Kilimanjaro mountain, with each of the ecosystems being a source of life, culture, and identity for our peoples. This is our natural wealth, our pride, and our legacy for the future generations. Your Excellencies, this wealth, however, is ever threatened. The destruction of forests, soil degradation, the loss of habitats, and the depletion of resources, climate change, amongst others, endanger our capacity to ensure a sustainable future. Each year we lose species, ecosystems, and development opportunities. So this summit comes at a moment where the world ever more recognizes that the biodiversity protection is fundamental for us to face up to the climate changes, to ensure food security and promote economic development that is balanced. The Montreal Biodiversity Framework delineates ambitions for the world and for Africa, and Africa has to play its role in this global endeavor. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for us Africans, the conservation of biodiversity is much more than a mere environmental protection, but also justice for the climate. We cannot have a long-lasting development without a balance between economic growth, social growth, and natural preservation. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to highlight three priorities which should guide our collective action. Firstly, it is urgent to strengthen environmental governance, integrate biodiversity in public policy. We need strong institutions, science-based policies, and shared management that engages the local communities and values traditional knowledge. The conservation has to be a responsibility among all. We need to mobilize financial resources that are sustainable and foreseeable. It's fundamental that international partners translate into concrete support their commitment. Mechanisms and green instruments and public-private partnerships in order which take into account the nature as a capital.
É fundamental fortalecer a cooperação regional e continental. Excelências, minhas senhoras e meus senhores,
ladies and
a
gentlemen,
biodiversidade não
biodiversity has no boundaries. Our rivers, forests, and ecosystems which are shared require joint management. The African Union, the regional economic communities, universities, civil society should join hands in this collective endeavor. But above all, we should place the people at the center of our solutions. Biodiversity cannot be protected with laws or natural parks, but with the development of the populations and the empowerment of women and youth, and a guarantee that conservation will bring about real benefits to those who live be on land or on sea. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenge is a major one. However, our will has to be even greater, history will look at us and judge us for the decisions that we're going to take here today. This summit should be a milestone of unity, hope, and action, a joint commitment for an Africa that protects its nature, values its resources, and builds a future of prosperity that is sustainable. To conclude, I'd like to reaffirm that biodiversity is our life, our strength, and our
Este encontro marca o início de uma nova era de consciência, solidariedade,
beginning of a new era of conscience, solidarity, and commitment with our land, Africa. Long live African Union. Long live Africa. Long live biodiversity. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for the address. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, we are now going to have official opening address by Advocate Duma Boko, President of the Republic of Botswana, the host. You have the floor, Excellency.
Please be seated and accept my apologies for making you stand. May recognize at the outset the director of these proceedings and thank her for conducting the proceedings with such aplomb. The executive of the Republic of Botswana is here in the House, represented by not just myself, but the person of the Vice President, Ndaba Nkosinathi Haulath. I recognize him, greet him, and thank him for being here. The President of the Republic of Angola is here as well, represented by the Minister of Environment, appearing here in the composite capacity of Minister of Environment and representative of the President of Angola, who is also the chairperson of the African Union. We recognize you, ma'am. Ana Paula Chantre Luna de Carvalho Pereira. You've been welcomed into the country. I welcome you again. The head of the legislature of the Republic of Botswana, the Speaker of the National Assembly, is here, Mr. Ditapelo Keorapetse, who presides over that institution charged in terms of the Constitution of this Republic with the heavy burden of making laws for the peace and the good governance of this Republic, and he is here, I'm certain, to make sure that whatever resolutions emerge from this gathering, if they haven't already found their way, they do find their way into improving the legislative framework under which we have to protect our environment and our biodiversity. The African Union Commission Deputy Chairperson, Her Excellency Selma Malika Haddadi, we recognize you and thank you for your presence here today. We also acknowledge the Minister of Environment and Tourism of the Republic of Botswana, Mr. Winter Muluzi, who is truly the host of this gathering, and thank him for the great and admirable work that he has done, not just in calling us here today, but also in welcoming all of you, extending to you the best hospitality. And I hope in the process he has treated you to Botswana beef, prepared in the special fashion in which, when it is so prepared, it is called in the Setswana language, seswaha. And I had a friend who loved this so much that he adopted this as the word to describe anything that was magnificent. And each time anything good happened, he would say, it's seswa. So I hope at some point you've also come into contact with this delicacy. And we should, at the end of this conference, then say it was seswa. So thank you very much for hosting us. The African Union Commission, a commissioner, Moses Vilakati. I recognize you and thank you for gracing this event. All ministers and assistant ministers who are here, thank you very much for coming. Heads of diplomatic corps, heads of United Nations agencies, senior government officials who are here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. I am deeply honored to stand before you today at this First African Biodiversity Summit hosted by the Republic of Botswana in partnership with the African Union Commission. We meet at a moment of urgency, but also a moment of significant opportunity to chart a shared path for our continent's natural heritage. We are happy as a country to host this important event, which gives us an opportunity to showcase our conservation success story and share with the world lessons from many decades of successfully looking after some of the best biodiversity hotspots. Africa is blessed beyond measure. Our lands, wildlife, our waters, forests, and wetlands. These are not just beautiful landscapes. They are a foundation for livelihoods, culture, identity, climate resilience, health, and prosperity. Botswana has set aside 40% of her territory as protected areas and wildlife management areas. Our track record in conserving our wildlife, including the 140,000 or so elephants, is second to none. Of these 140,000, we've donated 500 to the Republic of Mozambique so that they can also partake of the beauty and the majesty of this great animal. The President of the Republic of Angola has also requested that we donate some to Angola as well. I committed the country even without consulting the minister. I hope he indulges me. So we will give a few to Angola, and we hope they will take care of them. Because the reason we have so many is that they have found Botswana to be a sanctuary. They have felt threatened and endangered in other parts, and so they have tended to regard Botswana as their place of safety. We trust that the 500 that we have donated to Mozambique, when they do find their way there, they will also find safety in Mozambique and in Angola as well. Our government continues to invest significant resources in the protection of our biodiversity, despite many other competing imperatives. The world today stands at a crossroads. Biodiversity loss, climate change, pollution, land degradation, shrinking forests, water scarcity, rising human-wildlife conflict, fragmented wildlife corridors, invasive species. These forces threaten not only species and ecosystems, but also the well-being and security of our communities. The theme of this summit, leveraging Africa's biodiversity for prosperity, is both timely and profound. It underscores that biodiversity is not a luxury, but a vital component of our natural wealth. We must therefore move beyond preservation and ensure that the value of biodiversity is embedded in our economic planning, our development strategies, and our governance frameworks. Prosperity must be defined not only by GDP, but in secure food systems, in clean water, resilient communities, nature-based economies, and healthy ecosystems that buffer the shocks of climate change. When nature is degraded, the costs are huge and often borne by the poorest among us. But when nature thrives, it supports us all. Achieving our ambitions requires adequate resources. Africa carries large gaps in conservation finance. Botswana therefore supports the establishment of the Africa Biodiversity Fund to bridge this gap. We must collectively mobilize domestic and international finance, incentivize private investment, explore innovative instruments such as green bonds, payments for ecosystem services, biodiversity credits, while redirecting harmful subsidies into nature-friendly initiatives. Biodiversity must be mainstreamed across all sectors, including agriculture, mining, urban development, infrastructure, and energy. We must seek economic models that reward conservation, that create jobs in ecotourism, sustainable harvesting, and green supply chains. It is imperative that we develop and align our national biodiversity strategies and action plans to the Africa Strategy and Action Plan and other global biodiversity instruments to ensure commonality of purpose and coordinated action. No country can manage biodiversity alone. Transboundary ecosystems require cross-border cooperation. Regional economic communities, civil society, private sector, international partners all play a vital role. These partnerships must be those that are equitable, that respect national sovereignty, uphold human rights, and offer mutual benefit. I'd like to remind us all that the main issue for us in Africa is improving the livelihoods of our citizens. How can we ensure that our citizens meaningfully and sustainably benefit from Africa's rich biodiversity? How can we make sure that our rich biodiversity creates sustainable jobs, jobs in Africa and for Africans? We gather here today having answers and authority for implementation. Let this summit be more than just words. Let it mark a turning point. Let it be an opportunity to renew our political will, commit resources, and seal partnerships. Let us establish the Africa Biodiversity Fund. May our deliberations at this gathering lead to bold and transformative outcomes. May Africa be not just a region of abundant nature, but a region where biodiversity is interwoven with prosperity, justice, resilience, and hope. I feel strengthened in my resolve to play a modest part. I see in your smiling faces the radiance and the beauty of Africa. I see in the people of Africa and their rich diversity, they are as beautiful as the flowers of the African countryside. And we must serve them with humility, with dedication, with commitment. And they must also feel that they are an integral part of any decision that we take, that they are part of any step that we undertake. Because we do this for them, for those proud citizens of Africa. We do it for Africa. Yes, we do it for the world. Gives me great pleasure, therefore, to be here with you and to participate in this summit. Let me thank you, therefore, for the privilege of your company here with us today and the pleasure of your kind attention. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Excellency Advocate, for that wonderful address and very insightful. Excellencies, we may now take our seats. After this, we are going to have a photo session. I'm sure the protocol and usherates are going to guide where the photo session is going to be. I want to believe it's just outside by the reception area on the staircase. Thereafter, we're also going to have a health break. These two activities are only going to last for 25 minutes and then we'll be back in. Excellency, please, I submit. May we all maintain our seats as we allow Advocate President of the Republic of Botswana, Excellency Chair of African Union, the High Table, all Excellencies and heads of delegation to step out of the room for the group photo. May we take our seats if we are not in this corridor. Thank you so much, Excellencies.
All right, and of course that puts a pause on the official opening of the African Biodiversity Summit, first session today by the President, Advocate Duma Boko. We also did hear the sentiments of the AU chairperson as well as the AU deputy chairperson. And of course, the President spoke highly about the value of committed and a united front on the part of African nations, on the part of governments, on the part of various stakeholders towards the common goal of preserving biodiversity and ensuring that it benefits communities in terms of creation of jobs, as well as bringing about the sustainability in accordance to the agenda that Africa wants and the agenda that the world, or the global village, aspires to achieve. And in a moment's time, we'll be speaking to various stakeholders just to get their sentiments regarding what has already been shared and in terms of what their expect the deliverables of this summit to bring. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Maybe just, the AU chairperson and the deputy AU chairperson spoke at length, as well as the president. What would your takeaways be as a stakeholder at this summit?
Thank you. My name is Kanyamani Fidelis. I'm from Uganda, in the southwest of Uganda, the Virunga Massif. We are here today, we are here in this summit as greater as Africa. I'm honored to be part of the first Biodiversity Summit of Africa. Africa, our identity is nature-based in the global world. And as Africa, what I learned from today, that as African, if we don't conserve our biodiversity, we'll have lost our niche that we set in the global market. Listening from the president of Botswana, lovely president of Botswana, this gives us a calling to the nation, to the African Union, to the African, that we should conserve and sell our tourism potential. This conference made me understand, made me rethink about our biodiversity. I come from the Virunga transboundary, the very rich biodiversity that is from Uganda, Congo, and Rwanda, where we are endowed with the mountain gorillas. You can see even the t-shirt I'm wearing, my gorilla family. It's an application where you belong to a gorilla family, and most of the people from the Western world, probably who are not endowed with the nature, come to this area. But what is my take home? Isn't it your question? My take home is when I reach, I can't wait to reach home to make sure that I spread the gospel. I engage government. I engage government workers about our biodiversity. Botswana has portrayed to me the interaction of the people we met, and the whole week that we are here gave me a thinking that what you have most is the biodiversity, rich biodiversity, which we should actually turn into a gold mine. It's a green oil.
Indeed, a green oil. Maybe just in short, as Uganda, what would you believe that you could share to the region generally? I mean, Africa and countries all have something to put on the table in terms of conservation. What is Uganda's story, and what is Uganda sharing at this forum?
Before I go to Uganda, what do I get from SADC? I found the SADC countries are united for biodiversity. And I had a friend called Grigori from Rwanda and a lady from Kenya. We are sitting to go and make East Africa biodiversity community-based. So they're copying from the SADC, because we found the campfire, we found the African Leaders Network, the Okavango Community Trust. Those are things that we borrow the leaf that we take back home to our region, East Africa. Now, what does Uganda offer in which people can learn from? In Uganda, we have the mountain gorillas, which is the community-led conservation. We have actually removed poaching around Bundi. I have a company which I represent here called Bwindi Community Tour Operators and Hotel Owners Association. We are actually removing a gun around Bwindi. We want to be community-led. So far there is no minimal poaching. We are working hard that the community take over because of sustainable benefit. The mountain gorillas is a big asset for the country of Uganda. Tourists who come to track the mountain gorillas, they pay $800 per hour. So for me, this is a lesson that Uganda has a product that which was well packaged, which brings in the high-end clientele who come to do the gorilla tracking. I myself, I own a hotel called Wagtail Bwindi Forest Lodge, and it hosts some clients. So if well handled, but from this summit has empowered me. I've networked ICN, JAVE, Campaign for Nature. I've met many people, UNDP, and I must salute Dr. Seguya of Great Virunga Transboundary, who made sure that me and Gregory come for this meeting. And we are thinking that when we go back home, we will do the needful. And then the lovely people of Botswana, I can't forget to talk about them. Botswana is a free country. Even the president, when he sees a free person, I feel indebted for Botswana. And I must come back. If I'm allowed to invest in Botswana, I must come back. I'll visit the Okavango. I'll come to Botswana again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights and for your time. All right. And of course, that was a delegate from Uganda sharing on how Uganda is managing its biodiversity. And of course, given its renownment, it's being renowned in its biodiversity, the aspect of mountain gorillas he did mention as a major part of its management of biodiversity, and of course what it does at a community level and what that means for the local community in terms of improved livelihoods as well as improving the local economy as well. We'll continue to speak to various delegates and just to get their insights on what this day means and of course what the summit really does represent for member countries. We continue with that. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Please tell us where you're from and, of course, just what this summit, what are the biggest takeaways for you from this summit?
Thank you. My name is Kandondi from Okavango Jakotso Community Trust in the Okavango regions. My presence here is to see what other organizations do, to hear what they do, where they are coming from, and share ideas and knowledge. How can we improve ourselves where we are coming from?
And of course, maybe just your interactions with various stakeholders. Partnerships here are very integral. What would you say in terms of the partnerships that can be established from this summit?
Usually and always, partnership is like you interact to share ideas, processes, and governance. So the most important part of this is to harmonize the relationship so that everything you get from the one another, you can go and utilize it to make better yourself.
So what would you say are the biggest takeaways? Okavango is, in terms of biodiversity, there's a lot happening there. Maybe just share your insights as to what is happening in there, and what countries from Africa can actually learn from the biodiversity management that's happening in the Okavango.
Thank you. Let me thank for the opportunity, for our presence in Okavango, for the presence of the nature of the Okavango, that has put us on the map. The nature in the Okavango Delta itself has contributed to our lives. One, we now have an opportunity to be seen by everybody that where we are, we now have an opportunity to receive funds to support our communities, to receive funds to maintain our Okavango Delta. Now, through the partnership, we generate income through the activity we do in the Okavango Delta. Like I can say, Okavango Jakota Community Trust has been given an area within the Okavango Delta where we lease to private sector who pay rentals to the community trust, of which that rental is owned, it utilized to develop and improve the livelihood of the community members. On top of that, within the Okavango Deltas, there's a portion that we have where we do Mukoro activities, where our people gather these valued products, reeds, grass for their improvement, social, economic.
You mentioned another important aspect, which is finances. What would that look like if the international community or the regional community were to expedite framework that could help bring about funding for the Okavango or various other opportunities in different biodiversity initiatives?
Oh, thank you. In terms of funding, currently Okavango River, which is sourced or recharged from the water from Angola, it is dying. So, put in funds, it will be used to block out the blocked channels, to open accessibility, to restructure the river itself from as it was before the 80s, because the 80s water was everywhere in the Okavango Delta, but nowadays everything has gone down. Now we appeal to the international organization to come and unite with us to improve the water flow in the Okavango Delta, to change the face of the livelihood of our people who were much dependent on agriculture, to utilize the Okavango opportunity, either fisheries, something people can venture in, to make fish ponds, to divert from utilizing or group themselves into the river, which sometimes impact the nature of the river. So if fish pond can be introduced in the area, it will assisting from impact the river or damage of the river. So we appeal to the community, international communities to help us with fund to establish fish farming so that our people can have farm in their plots where they stay and sell to the local market.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Gandondi, and for your insights as well.
Thank you very much.
And of course, that was Mr. Gandondi speaking to the value of partnerships, the value of financial investments, both locally and regionally as well, but also mentioning how international funding also would really be ideal and very beneficial to the type of work they do in the Okavango. Mentioning at community level, how it will benefit and bolster support for local communities. He also mentioned the fact he spoke to the issue of infrastructural development and how the framework that could be established through finances would greatly make an important aspect, rather would be an important aspect in bringing about the necessary infrastructural developments that are required to make the Okavango Delta even more a platform that could thrive even more. And maybe just to circle back to what the president also mentioned in terms of where Botswana is in her biodiversification, biodiversity investments as well as management. He spoke to, we do know that Botswana does have a large population of elephants, and also mentioning the fact that, she's globally renowned for that. This does attest to the framework and the instruments that she has implemented over the years in terms of conserving her wildlife population. And this, of course, we've also seen the allocation of 40% of land mass towards the protection of biodiversity as well as wildlife management. And this is one integral aspect that has also seen, that has put Botswana on the map in terms of the prioritization of conservation at its very core through the allocation of 40% of its territory or land mass towards biodiversity management, and obviously it's thriving. He also talked about the foundation, how biodiversity really is at the core of it, the foundation of the identity of various communities and how it is important to life, livelihoods, sustainability, as well as the prosperity of these very communities, mentioning the fact that it is important by virtue of having such importance for local communities to be able to benefit from this endowment that Botswana has, that Africa has, and of course called for a collective approach when it comes to putting together instruments that could help, or rather framework that could help African countries like Botswana, as well as the world, putting together minds and hearts and the ambitions of ensuring that biodiversity is sustainable and that management of biodiversity is done at a level that will bring about regional sustainability as well as global sustainability. There's a lot that we can talk to, and of course the sessions will get underway. Various sessions that will speak to various issues of biodiversity, and of course that will help unpack various thematic areas within biodiversity that will help talk to issues of how biodiversity is important and why it is. And of course this really does tie into the Agenda 2063, Africa's agenda, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, which are the Agenda 2030. And from this end, it is a wrap. We cross back to One to give you more on her end.
Right, thank you so much, Tsidi, over at the main. On the sideline of this, we have our mobile studio here at the Royal Area. So the conversation of financing for biodiversity, leveraging biodiversity for prosperity is the core for this summit. So we're going to be joined by one of the major, it's probably no exaggeration to say, one key financier when we're talking about the biodiversity, when we're talking about nature, which is the United Nations Development Program. We have the country representative, Lovita Ramgashi, here with us in the mobile studio. Let me welcome you, Lovita. Thank you for taking time to have a word with us. Thank you so much. Right. So we're seeing that, at least from the deliberations, that it is no longer business as usual.
Not at all.
Not at all when we're talking about financing for biodiversity. We have experienced and observed the loss in billions of biodiversity. So how is it perhaps that we can establish this shift, this green shift, away from biodiversity perhaps being a loss, or to biodiversity being an asset, and especially for continental Africa?
First of all, again, thank you for having me. Yeah. It's really an honor to be here. And also sitting at the margin, right, of a summit which is still ongoing. Yeah. Today is the last day, and we will be hearing later the declaration of this summit. But back to your question, I think it's important to know, and I think we all recognize it, that biodiversity has been very much undervalued as an asset, as a product. Yeah. And yet, when we look at the richness of biodiversity, it touches on issues of livelihood,
absolutely,
on food security, climate resilience, right? And this word that you use about how do we create that shift, that green shift you call it, is extremely important, because for many, biodiversity is a cost, it's a conservation cost. And what we would like as UNDP is to see a mindset where this equation of biodiversity with conservation costs goes away. Yeah. And that we see biodiversity more as a productive and as an economic asset, as a growth sector, like any other sector, like agriculture, like tourism. Yeah. And I think for UNDP, this is what we're trying to do with our programs, not just in Botswana, but also globally. We are present in, I guess, more than 135 countries in rolling out a program which we call BioFin, which basically stands for Biodiversity Financing, where we're trying to get transforming that narrative that you talked about.
Right.
And I think to a large extent we've been very successful. And if you look at countries like, including in Botswana, we've tried to mainstream or integrate biodiversity in national financial systems.
Right.
And by aligning the macroeconomic planning or biodiversity to macroeconomic planning, we have been seeing a lot of changes. And we've been able to actually globally manage to catalyze over $1.7 billion globally
because sometimes
on
the concern is,
nature finance.
Because sometimes the concern is that ministries of environment get the the smallest cut of the national budget, for instance. So yeah.
But I think programs like Biofin that UNDP is implementing with our government partners and also private sector, we're starting to try to shift that mindset. First of all, mindset shift takes a long time. This is not an overnight thing. And working with our government to realize the economic value of an asset which they have perhaps underestimated, and to then translate that into budget, into fiscal system, we are starting to see a new engine of growth.
Yeah.
And just coming from this summit, I've been here since Monday. We're talking about nature for Botswana as your new diamond,
right?
Which is basically a new sector. So I was happy to hear that.
I want you to speak more on that because Botswana has reserved 40% towards conservation. But then not just to dwell into that, but as we are coming now to the heads of states engaging today from the different levels now to the actual political commitment, perhaps your views on that from the conversations that have been is beyond talk now.
I wish I could be in all the sessions because so many events were happening in parallel and UNDP, I'm very pleased that UNDP is partnering very closely with the host ministry here, which is the Ministry of Environment and Tourism, to organize such an amazing and unprecedented summit, right? It's the first ever Africa Biodiversity Summit. So I hope a declaration doesn't just stay a declaration, that countries who are here present at ministerial level who will sign off to this declaration will go back to their countries and domesticate it. And as UNDP, this is the intention, that we don't just leave a declaration in a drawer, but we work with our partners to see what we can do concretely.
Okay.
Now, what's emerging from the discussion is, multiple issues, at least from the ones I have been attending. Yesterday or the day before, we hosted a session on biodiversity financing. And that session...
This is a major one.
Excuse me. That session was really about how countries can leverage financing from their biodiversity. And Biofin is all about bringing to countries innovative financial instruments, right, which can help them do that. In Botswana, we have a few already. We've been, for instance, 2-3 years ago, we relooked at the revenue generating system for protected areas, and we revised that. And the results was amazing.
I want also you to go to the private sector's role. When you're in that conversation, especially that you attended the engagement on financing, perhaps the challenge being making biodiversity strategies for private sector attractive today, because it is no longer an option,
Look, when it comes to the private sector, what's important for countries to do, and this is where I guess partners like us come in, we need to de-risk and monetize nature. If we don't do that, private sector, or obviously profit-making entities, will not see the return on their investment. And I think the programs we have at UNDP does exactly that. And when we look at some of the blended finance mechanism that we put in place or we help countries develop, it's exactly with the intention of de-risking. those investments, right? And we also work a lot, for instance, not necessarily in Botswana, but in other countries in the neighborhood, on green bonds. This is also another way to make investment in nature more attractive to our investors. So I would say that there's a lot of instruments out there, and we need to put a value to biodiversity, and biodiversity is vast. The whole fauna and flora, I mean, the richness of this continent is amazing. This is the continent which hosts the richest biodiversity globally. And I think...
that has every ecosystem, actually.
Absolutely, everything. And I've been in your beautiful country, not even for a month now, but I've seen a few of the richness of this country. And I think the challenge, or the opportunity we have, I would not even say it's a challenge, is how do you quantify that value and sell it to our investors?
Between nature, profit,
absolutely.
And going,
And for us, we look at it in a very integrated manner because these touch livelihoods. We are creating jobs in addition to conserving an ecosystem which perhaps is being threatened, right? We have a lot of endangered species which we need to protect. The elephant population that you have in your country is 1/3 of the continent.
And perhaps when we're dabbling with this as Africa, and for the first time coming together to be able to position Africa to speak as a one voice, perhaps your views just on this transformational change. We're looking at the fact that we have to transform finance. We would have to transform global production, the way we're used to doing things. We would also need to catalyze mindset, the communication, the awareness, and also the ownership, as we have seen. One of the questions being about community engagement, and just in your view, perhaps borrowing from the strategies that UNDP is embarking on over the countries. I know that 123 countries are at least taking on some of the programs of the UNDP. What is your view?
6 countries, now I remember.
Ah, yes, okay. So what is your view? Speak to this transitional change.
We work at different levels, right? As an intergovernmental body, our close partnership is our government. But we also work with everyone, with the private sector, with NGOs, academic institutions, media, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So with the government, our priority is to work closely with them so they set up an enabling environment with the right incentives and mechanism in place for all players, right? But this is not just the task of the government. There's so much a government can do. And to make sure that everyone feels responsible for the conservation of this rich biodiversity that we have in this continent cuts across many stakeholders. So we work not just at government level, and I'm talking not just national government, but local governments where action takes place. But we also work with private sector to get them to understand not only why it makes business sense for them, because it's going to generate more profits for them in the future by investing in nature, by investing in climate, but also we are starting to see emerging an ecosystem of impact investors now. Yes, they are interested in making profit. That's their business. But they're also interested in making profit whilst also having a real impact. And that impact can be multifold. It can be about job creation. It can be about livelihood. It can be about women's economic empowerment. So we are starting to see a generation of impact investment with very different interests. And those, for us, it's about how you translate those interests into a business case through nature conservation. We work with communities. You talked about communities. We work with them. In Botswana, like in many other countries, we have a program called Small Grant Program. This is probably the only program that we have at UNDP where we are at that grassroots level, where we are able to change mindset of local communities, indigenous people, those who are sitting at the core of those forests, those
Of
rich
biodiversity,
biodiversity,
yeah.
and making them appreciating the importance of it, but making them love that nature.
And participating.
And participate, and be an active agent of change
Yeah.
in the whole conservation agenda.
Right. Unfortunately, this is all the time that I have, Lovita, but thank you for sharing the perspective of the UNDP, and especially because of the position of this very formidable major player position that the UNDP holds worldwide. You correct me to say 136 countries?
In more than 170 countries.
170 countries.
But our biofin program is in 136 countries.
Yes.
Only 1 or 2 years ago, we were only present in 40 countries. So imagine the interest of member states, of our government, in seeing value in how you use biodiversity as a financing, as a revenue generating asset.
And ultimately, the impact of it. Let me thank you so much. I'm thanking Lovita Ramgaji, who's the country representative of the UNDP here in Botswana. And this is along the margins of the Africa Biodiversity Summit, which is going on at the main hall. We are over at the Royal Area here in Tlokwe. So right now, I'm going to go back to the mass media broadcast station, over to the BTV News. We will come back, bring our broadcaster back here to the Africa Biodiversity Summit at 2 p.m. Stay with us.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.